Today on the Jeep Commander Project Overlander, we're going to tackle the inside. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda out here with Project Overlander, and this 20-year-old Jeep Commander has some issues on the inside. Let me show you. And here's the driver's side, and the issue here is that, as you might expect, we have some massive wear right there. We have a tear in the vinyl. That's vinyl, dude. Let me see if I can show you. See? That is vinyl right down there. And you've got some pieces here that are kind of coming up. I'm going to have to trim those off. I'm going to fill that with some plastic filler. And then, as you can see, the leather pieces here are scratched up. Rivets on the jeans. That's what I wear. Or it might be the penny that got fused to my butt when I was playing with fire one day. On the front here, obviously, some scratches, some cracking. This is all very common to have a lot of cracks up here. And so what I want to do is not only do I want to fill these cracks so that you don't see them, I think we have some on the sides here too, some sides right there. So I'm going to fill those, fill these cracks, but then you're going to have this white putty-like elastomer filler. Just kind of looks like it got spackled or something. But I also have ordered some leather dye that is supposed to match this out of the gate, and hopefully it will match 20-year-old seats, because these brown seats I kind of dig. Now, the other seats aren't as bad. You can see we have some cracking up there too. So there's kind of a doubt in my mind whether this aged leather and the dye that's on there actually looks maybe different than the new dye will when I put it down. And so I'm worried about it matching. Not so much of an issue on the front seat here, but don't want to dye certain areas of the passenger seats and the rear seats if it doesn't need it, and it's going to be really obvious that it's been repaired. So let me show you what I got in the kit and why I picked up this particular kit. All right, so I want to show you this box here. I picked this up from leathertouchupdye.com. This is not the first time I've bought a kit from them, but they are by far the best I've ever tried. And so one of the things that was really cool is that you can look up your car, and they have a bunch of color codes, and they had this saddle brown 7548, I guess. I'm not actually sure that that is right. It kind of looks like it could be right. It almost looks a little more reddish than brown, but it's hard to tell in this light and this little canister there. This little dye kit can cover a lot of sins, and I want to show you here that it has leather cleaner in there, and then this leather top coat. So you have everything that you need, including the sponge applicator, some rags here, and some nitrile gloves. And then what I also ordered was the small repair kit, which includes this leather repair filler, which again looks like Elmer's glue and dries flexible. Again, you've got a little spatula for applying that, a little sandpaper for treating the area before, so that has a little bit of a textured finish so that it will take it. You can use the sandpaper to prep the area and then apply the filler, and then use the sandpaper to sand down the filler so that it's nice and even before you clean it up, and then apply the dye and the top coat and all that. So we have the spatula, some more nitrile gloves right there. We also have these filling backers so that if you have a big hole or something like that, you can put it tuck it underneath the hole so that you have some backing to hold the filler in place. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill those areas, and then we're going to let those dry. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the dye here to see what the leather looks like, and hopefully it looks pretty good. But let's fill some holes and cracks and rips first. So one thing I'm going to do here is any places that the repair has sharp edges, or they're really coming off, or they're too frail or too crunchy to be pliable, or they've just deteriorated and they're no longer pliable, I'm just going to kind of cut them off. I don't want any of those things sticking up and screwing up the rest of the repair. So I'm just going to clean this up first. I could even feel some pieces that were still sticking up, so took some 400 grit sandpaper and just filed those down. That seems pretty smooth all the way around there. I am now just going to go ahead and get some leather cleaner and clean this up, and then we will start applying the filler. All right. I think this is supposed to be a permanent solution, so I've got the nitrile gloves on here because I don't want to have to fight trying to get this stuff off. Here is this putty, the gel. It's kind of gelatinous here, and let's start putting it on some of the cracks and see how it goes. Okay, I'm putting it right on the crack. I'm going to be pretty generous with this, kind of a little bit like Bondo, because I know I can come back, I think even put more on, or if I have too much, sand it down even. So I definitely want to have, so just for adhesion purposes and build-up purposes, so I don't have any delamination, just going to be a little more generous with this than I normally would be, considering I'm not generous at all. I'm just trying to feather it around the edges, so I've got it blended in a little bit at least. Okay, now trying to do some of the cracks down here on the bottom. All right, now for some of these shallower cracks up here, I think I can just kind of spackle them in a little bit. Not only did I clean this, but I prepped this with alcohol just to kind of add a little bit of tackiness to it. But all right, that may be a little overkill, but definitely going to hit it with some sandpaper. And now let's try the other side here, the other leg. There's actually a ton of filler in this little 2-ounce bottle. You could have some pretty wicked seats and have plenty of filler to fill some pretty impressive cracks. I felt like that other side went on a little bit easier. Try this side again. All right. This looks scary and awful and is way more stress-inducing than I kind of expected. But, man, hopefully the dye will hide all of that. So get a good night's rest and try not to think about it. All right. See you tomorrow. All right. It is the next day, and I have let all of that prep work that we did on the seats cure. And actually, I'm in my Detroit Giants baseball shirt here. Shout out to the Giants and my boy Brian. Yeah. So this is my play and work shirt, and it's bright orange. So if I get lost in here, people will be able to find me. So I just want to see what it looks like and feels like before we get on to the next part. And at a glance, it kind of looks like the way we left it. You can see all that filler caked on there, but it's dry, and you can see these little ridges, and I can feel those. So we got to knock all that stuff down, make it nice and smooth. The little ridges right there, I can feel all that. You want it smooth, like after I shave my back. This is going to be the hardest one because this was really thick with filler. In fact, you can see where that filler has kind of sunk in and contracted in some of that area there. So this part, I might actually have to do a little more filler before I sand it down. And I did some scuffs up here as well. Over here on the side, I mean, there's a lot of ridges. But as you can see, stuff is pretty pliable. I mean, if I didn't know it was there, it feels just kind of like flexible leather material. And then obviously over there, I did that too. I decided not to wait. I was already in the groove. So I am going to start sanding this area down. I'm going to put a little more filler there. So we'll wait on that another day or until that cures. But I'm going to try to get this all ready for the next step here. So onto it. All right. I would not normally recommend this, but I'm going with a 400 grit here. That is pretty aggressive. But just because I have some really high peaks here, that's all I'm really going to focus on. Just kind of knocking down some of those highest points and just kind of leveling off that stuff. And then I'm going to go down to my much lower grit. You know, you really want to give it a good key. I kind of feel a little bit like you want to get notebook paper texture, just a little bit of a scuffed finish there so that it really takes and absorbs that dye. So gonna just knock down these high areas gently with this aggressive grit, and then we will quickly switch to the lower grit. See, it's working pretty fast. Woo, you can feel it. Yeah, that's a little high there still, but man, I kind of knocked down these ridges pretty quickly. All right, I've got it sanded down as I mentioned. I ended on 1,000 grit to give it a nice, even, smooth without going too aggressive. Now I've got a lot of dust everywhere. I'm just using water right now to kind of wipe off the dust and all that excess stuff there. Just going to get rid of that off the seats. So that's what it looks like now. You can see where there's actually filler as opposed to the dust that was spread around. And I was just feeling it with my other hand as I was sanding just to make sure that I didn't have any high spots, and I was doing this. And now that it's all wet, it's quite sensual. Yes. All right. So I'm going to wipe that seat down too, and then we will let this dry. I'm going to clean it up with rubbing alcohol, and then we will try some of the dye, and I hope it works. All right, I'm going to start over here because this is easier side to shoot. There is a bunch of stuff that comes in the kit. I'm going to need one of these applicator pads. I have actually used a lot of my own prep materials here. This is the saddle brown dye. You actually have to shake this up. It has a little dispenser cap that comes with it and a little foil top that you have to tear off. So I'm going to shake that up. And then once we get done with that, we are going to use these other things that are included here. Automotive sealer. And you'll use this leather cleaner to clean the leather before you try to seal it. Now, I've actually gone ahead and used my other leather cleaner, which I use on all the leathers that I do. But one of the things that I want to do now is just shake up this dye. Man, I hope that is going to be a good match. We will see, though. But that is why we're doing it on camera, because this may be a two-tone seat. It may look very racy and sporty after this. Now, I only have one gloved hand here, just like Michael Jackson and Luke Skywalker, but you should probably have two. That's because I'm only going to do it with my right hand here. Now, I'm actually going to start on the part that I actually did the leather filler on, and then I might go to this middle section. There are some scratches, but it's actually not that bad a shape. I'm going to put the dye on the applicator here. I'm just going to put it in the middle. I'm going to cup it like this because it's very runny and it doesn't soak in super fast. But there, I've got it in there. And now you can actually just kind of wipe it on like this. But I like to do a little dabbing just to try to build up as much of this dye on the material as possible. If I wipe it, it's going to kind of leave some high-low spots, which I don't really want to do. And I kind of want to keep that leather texture. So I'm just going to model it on there. I mean, I'll tell you what, obviously it's very shiny right now, but the color match is pretty darn good, man. These guys know what they're doing. I'm not actually sure how they do it, and especially because this seat is super old. I was worried about just the fading of the leather and then new color being applied on, but so far it's really good. I'll tell you what, maybe because it's a darker color, but it is hiding that leather filler really well, even on this first application. I can still see where it is, so obviously this is not going to be the only application of this, but so far I'm really impressed. And what I think I will do is I will actually apply it here, but because I don't need as much, I'm going to just go over where those scratches are. I've already gone ahead and treated this area because I wasn't sure if I was going to actually dye it or not, but might as well. Man, I mean, I might be getting greedy here because it looks so good. I might just want to do the whole darn seat. And even though I only have a bottle this size, it's probably enough to do the whole darn seat. Oh man, the little scratches on there are just gone. I'll show you on the close-ups, but yeah, I am totally tempted to do the whole seat. Awesome. All right, gonna keep doing this section here where I've done most of the repair. Just get in those crevices there. Wiping it around here and up here. And the nice thing about this dye is it kind of dries a little elasticy, kind of creates that layer on top. So even if it's not an area that needs to really be dyed again, the nice thing is I feel like you're kind of building up the material on top of it. Now again, where I have the repair, I'm just going to go ahead and model it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this dry. I don't know if I have to let it dry overnight or not, but I'm going to let that definitely dry at least for several hours until I get back. Go read the latest edition of Auto Trader, but dude, I'm impressed with how nice that is. Okay, I'm gonna do the other seat too, and then come back to it and finish her up. All right, so I have all of the dye applied to the seats that I'm gonna do, and I will tell you, just looking at it, it looks so fresh and inviting. It's crazy what this looked like just a day or two ago, and I mean, damn, these seats look pretty good. And that's just the dye on there. Now what I've got to do here is add this leather sealer or top coat. Basically, it's kind of like a clear coat for the dye. You know, when you paint a car, you put a clear coat on top. That's going to protect the paint underneath. It's going to protect the dye. It's also going to give you a little bit of a barrier so that you're not transferring any dye potentially to your clothes. So just a sealer to hold everything in. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this to a sponge, and then we're just going to kind of work it in, kind of like wax on, wax off, just kind of buff it in to the whole seat here, give it a nice coat and do both sides here, and then let that cure overnight. And hopefully that will be all we need to do. I think I just need to do one coat of this. So just give it a try. So I'll give it a little shake here. Might not be the easiest thing to see, but I have my little applicator pad here. I'm just going to spray the sealer into this and give it a nice big pad here. Now, I will say, I think this is like a satin finish to it, but one of the things that I have heard is that you can also get it in the matte color. It's a little like skim milk, and the matte will almost look a little chalky sometimes, and I've heard, you know, if you're not really good about smoothing it out with that matte, it might not look great. And I say that because, personally, I think I would prefer the matte color because I like when leather looks matte. But, you know, I think a lot of people are more used to the satin look, and so this will probably be the right way to go. I do see a little bit of streaking. I think you just kind of want to go over that because it can dry a little streaky if you're not careful. And if it does have some streaks, I've heard that you can correct that later. You just kind of go over it again with some more sealer and kind of rub it in a little bit better. Just because of the age and the excessive mileage on this car and the fact that I'm planning on taking it out to the wilderness here and beating the hell out of it, I'm probably not going to obsess too much about it. But I do want to show you, I'm getting a little color transfer onto the applicator pad. And as far as I know, that is totally fine. You know, you are actually touching the dye area, and so there can absolutely be some transfer. You want it to transfer to the pad as opposed to clothes or skin. You know, like I said, I drive angry and I drive naked. So that's kind of the whole point, is that you might have some color transfer to the pad. All right, so I'm just going to continue to do this on both seats here that I have re-dyed, and then we will let those sit overnight. I'm putting a pretty nice, generous coat on here, on everything, and then we'll check them out mañana after I have a whiskey beverage and a nice little nap. Okay, till tomorrow. All right, guys. It has been a day since I have gone ahead and finished up that last stage of the top coat. And I want to show you these seats. I'm trying to light this up as best I can. This is the driver's seat. This one was in the worst condition. Up top, it wasn't terribly, terribly bad. Although I did re-dye the top here too. And I think that looks pretty good. Right here on this bolster area, this was where it was really bad. And as you can see, maybe some top coat streak marks on there. But man, that looks awesome. You'd be hard pressed to find anything problematic there. Now, if we look at the bottom where this was all cut up, chewed up, scraped up, especially right here where keys or jean rivets or something like that was just cutting up this perforated area, that looks amazing. But look at this. This area where this was just all chopped up. I mean, there were just deep cuts, deep, deep cracks. This looked terrible. Obviously, look at that now. And then right here, on this particular bolster, this was where I had those really deep cracks in the vinyl. The vinyl edges were really sharp. They would cut up your skin, your clothing. And then even on the side here, right there, is where we had some more cracks. And so filled those in with the leather filler, dyed it, top coated it. Man, I can't believe how amazing this looks. Obviously, the passenger side wasn't as bad, but I did the whole seat as well, so plenty of dye to do that. But right down there, that's where there were a lot of cracks, especially on the front. You can see how nice that looks, like a brand new seat. I was actually even thinking, should I do this perforated section? Because it had some scratches, but wasn't really going to make any difference. And yeah, just totally got rid of them. I mean, it just makes that seat look amazing. I love the color of these seats, and the leather touch-up dye company, they definitely have some sort of voodoo for matching the dye color of the seats, because man, that looks amazing. I was really worried about these being 20-year-old seats and the dye not being the right color, but man, that is fantastic. So this is really the only kit I use. I know there's a ton of them that are very similar. They have you mix your own colors or whatever. I'm assuming the materials, I'm assuming the raw goods that go into them are probably pretty similar, but you almost can't mess up with a filler this good, this elastic, this easy to work with, the dye, the top coat that comes absolutely perfectly matched, that looks like it came from the factory. It took these 20-year-old beat up seats with 200,000 miles on them and made it look like a place I want to just get my body into, get my swerve on in these seats again. So if you want to pick up these repair kits, they're not the cheapest. Under a couple $100, but you're probably over $100 on some of these. For a small kit, like 100, maybe 80, 90, $100, something like that, but they come pretty quick. I'll put a link to them in the description below, because nothing lifts up the interior of a Jeep, well, like seats that look brand new. Or me in the passenger seat. Or in the back seat. You really want to get amorous. Hey, I'll put a link to all the stuff you need in the description below. Peter Von Panda, out.